And we're live today. I'm here with Sarabeth. Welcome, Sarabeth.
Hi, this is great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you that are regular watchers, Karen is away today. It'll just be me. She's making a move to New Zealand, which is really exciting. I wish her lots of luck getting there safely, and excited to connect with you all today. If you're tuned in and listening, share your name and location in the comments. It would be great to connect and see who's there. And we'll have a few prompts as well during the day. So looking forward to seeing what you have to say. So today we have Dr. Sarabeth Berk, and she is a researcher of professional identities and author of the book, You Are More Than Your Job, More Than Your Title. Sorry.
You got it. You got it.
Yes. And really excited to have you today. And I'm really curious, what does it mean? What do you mean by professional identity?
Yeah, I mean, identity is huge. We have so many identities in our life, from race, class, gender, hobbies, religion, but professional identity is one of those strands. And what I realized from my own pain point was that I kept being put into a box with just one professional identity, and that was being a teacher for a long time. But yet, in my heart and my soul, I was like, I'm more than that. I'm this artist, this designer, this researcher. Like, how do I showcase and use all these identities? So professional identity, I define it as anything you do for work, whether or not you get paid. It's the stuff you put on your resume. And I believe so many people feel stifled and confined to just calling themselves by one thing. So that's my definition of a professional identity. And that's what I research is, how are people more than just their job title?
And if someone's seeking to explore this notion about, what are these other parts of their identity, or what does that make up? What are some ways they can get started, or how might they start to unlock that?
Yeah, so the journey I've been on is first understanding myself, and then understanding how are others experiencing their professional identity. And what it led me to arrive at is this, that there's three types of professionals in the workforce, and we only think of two of them. So the three types are singularity, multiplicity, and hybridity. And what I mean by that is some people in the workforce are experts. They are truly good at one thing and one thing only, and they have one identity, singularity. Then you've got a body of people that are maybe generalists or in the gig economy or freelancers, and they have multiple identities. They do many different things. But the third bucket, and the one we haven't talked about in society, but it's emerging and growing rapidly, is people that are blending and combining and literally integrating identities together. And when they do that, that's a hybrid. So I realized I'm doing that. I didn't have language to describe that. And so the steps to explain and understand this first was, wow, permission that you can be a hybrid. It was the revelation that that term was allowable, and using that word when I introduced myself. But then I had to do a lot of self-reflection. That was really the first cornerstone of the work, to understand, well, what are my professional identities and how do they integrate together? And when I could articulate that, and then I came up with my own hybrid title, which I now call myself a creative disruptor. And that's how I introduce myself professionally. When people say, what do you do? I go, well, I'm a creative disruptor, and I'm able to use my artist, educator, designer identities to do innovation strategy. And suddenly everything comes together in this narrative. So those are some of the initial building blocks I talk about in my book. And I also have a workbook, because people are so excited about hybrids. And they, like you said, they're like, where do I start? What are the steps?
Yeah, and I recall when we were talking just before the show started, this notion of the Venn diagram and the
Yeah.
intersection of these different attributes or these capabilities, the interest and things that you have, is that's truly your specificity, or as a professional, that's that unique thing about you. Yeah, there it
Yeah.
is in the book, the diagram.
I,
Um,
it's a great tool.
and
People have never ever been asked to put their identities in a Venn diagram and then realize that their truest professional value and their differentiator is who they are in that bullseye, in that intersection. And when you can discover that and then share that with employers or clients, you stand out from the crowd. You're not just a researcher and a designer and a coder and a salesperson anymore. You are this new title that could be, this the spiritual disruptor or whatever you want to call it, and then you get to explain what that means.
It also reminds me of like personal branding types
Mm.
of kind of work, like people that are kind of pushing that as a vehicle or as a thing to do. But this seems a bit more down to earth and tactical, which is like there's a lot of power in that, right? Because people often seek the tactics, right? They're like, well, okay, that sounds great. I should be an influencer and have a personal brand, but what does that even mean for me? How do I translate it? Where
Totally. Yeah. So this echoes the area of personal branding, but how do you come up with your personal brand? I think work actually has three pieces to it. And again, we usually only talk about two. I call it the three-legged stool. You talk about your passion. What do you do? Your purpose. Why do you do it? And the thing we don't ask is identity. Who are you? What do you call yourself when you're doing your passion and purpose? So you can't brand yourself until you've reflected on and learned your identities. And then I think the combination of those identities takes it another level up. It's more than just saying, I am a consultant and marketer and coder and developer. Who are you when those are combined? That's a whole new you.
mm-hmm. I love it. And so that, I think that's a great prompt for our listeners. If there are personal identities that or professional identities that you have that you think really kind of define you, it would be great to see those in the comments. And Sarabeth, I'm sure you have much better prompts to extract some of these. What should folks be thinking about as they start to enter stuff into the comments?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from people how you're more than your job title. So if you're a director of programming, what are you really? How would you label the identities that show up the most? Maybe you're an innovator or a journey mapper or a storyteller or a marketer. Those are nouns that kind of are the real definition of who you are. And people usually have 10 or 20 different identities that they've never really shared before. And that's great. It's really good to understand here's all the things you are. And then I say focus on the ones that are the primary professional identities. That means those are the ones that light you up, give you energy, you use on a daily basis. You couldn't live without. If you had to turn one of them off, you'd be like, I'm missing part of myself. So knowing all of your professional identities and then narrow it down to the ones that are just your top, most frequent, most enjoyable ones. I'd love to see people's comments of list those 3 or 4 identities for us.
As you were kind of describing some of these things, it started to make me realize how helpful it could be to leadership, because you mentioned the gig economy and being able to find opportunities that maybe weren't readily apparent before. But if as a leader I knew more about my team's abilities because they were communicating them in a way that was more clear and apparent, I think then I could create more opportunity for them or match opportunities to capabilities more easily.
Yeah, this is workforce transformation, and it's not going away. So the hybrid job economy, a report came out last year, and it said hybrid jobs are growing twice as fast as traditional jobs in the job market, and they're being paid 20 to 40% more. And the reason is that hybrid roles typically can't be automated and outsourced because it requires so much human, knowledge and experience. And they are very sophisticated and complex. You're combining hard and soft skills, technical and non-technical abilities. You're just doing things that nobody else can do. And so hybrid workers are very desirable, and those jobs are just growing. So I think leaders need to think about, okay, I need to hire experts, I need to hire generalists, and I need to hire hybrids. And they don't know how to do that. There's different interview questions and training and just retaining processes to keep a hybrid engaged and feeling they're in their zone. And this is what I want to start opening up and talking about, so more people feel they're being valued and hired because they're a hybrid and not just hiding or fitting into a box that employers like, oh, you're only good at this one thing. The hybrid's going to get tired and move on.
Yeah, it also reminds me of how we talk about cross-functional teams being so critical and so important.
Yeah.
and diversity of thought mattering. And
Mhm.
so if you hire individuals that have diversity of thought based into their how they approach work, because they are hybrid, it kind of unlocks a lot of even more opportunity, right? Because we're kind of pushing this, we're making this notion of cross-functional teams more granular because the individuals are cross-functional.
Yeah, the individuals are cross-functional. They sort of are the translators between modalities so that the teams have better communication, better strategy, and things connect. So there's a lot of reasons why a hybrid worker adds a new dimension that's critical for teams. And I think they're already in companies and doing jobs. They just don't know that that's what they are as a hybrid, and companies don't call them out that way.
So we got this awesome question from one of our listeners. How does a hybrid resource find work?
So I think what I've learned in my own job trajectory is until I called myself and owned my hybridity, I wasn't actually finding and landing roles that represented my hybridity. So the last two jobs I've had, I was very clear in the interviewing process and, looking at the job descriptions, does it allow me to showcase my multiple identities? And as I did that, then the roles actually embraced and encouraged my multiple talents and identities to show up. So hybrid roles will come forward as you know more about yourself and how your identities work. You can also start Google searching hybrid roles. I'm seeing the word hybrid in job descriptions and in job titles. I told you there was a hybrid sales representative role I just saw yesterday. So it's starting to enter more. But I think the self-reflection, being explicit in communicating this is part of what matters to you and why you should be hired in the first place, and then looking for jobs that fit that. So we're just at this cusp of this being a major part of the workforce.
Yeah, it's I wanted to come back to the team thing because there's another element that was really exciting me, which was there's a workshop we really love to run, which is based off of the Clifton Strengths Finder, and the real power is that everyone in the team is getting to see what other members of the team
Mhm.
are, or what their highlights are, what their some of their maybe pitfalls are, and I can imagine if a team went through this together and started to understand how each person, what their hybrid elements might be, then you get to this understanding of the team and how you can help each other in ways that maybe weren't anticipated before.
Absolutely. And I play with this idea a lot that skills and identities are not always the same. So I might be really good at event planning, but I don't call myself an event specialist. That's not
Mhm.
an identity I see myself as being. And so I think unpacking as a team, what are the different identities people see you as, but then how do you see yourself and how do you want to be seen? That changes it. Because if I start projecting, I'm this artist, educator, researcher, designer, and that's how I want to walk in the world, then my teammates will see me that way. Most people don't realize I'm an artist, and that's important to me. I have to be creative in my work. So this is really about confidence and self-awareness and communication about who you are and how you want to be in your work.
I'd also would assume that anytime there's a discrepancy between what you're trying to project and what people are perceiving,
Yeah.
that's also not healthy.
Oh,
So getting a microscope on that and understanding if that's there, how to potentially address it.
totally. Yeah, identity work is big. And I think typically we focus on like Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, DISC. There's so many assessments, and that's good for team dynamics. And who are you is another layer of this. And I think
Hmm.
it takes it up to the next level. Yeah.
And I imagine it can get into the aspirational as well, because you're looking at like where you want to go, and so being able to assess that difference can be transformative because you won't be able to get there unless you can see it.
I work with so many people in career transition and they're saying, I'm trying to reach for this new identity. I'm like, great, let's bring that into your intersections and talk about that as part of your hybridity. And this just makes people's minds blow up. They're like, I didn't know I could do this. No one gave me information on how to look at my hybridity. So this is the tool I think is a gift, helping people just see themselves in a new way.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah Beth, it's been amazing chatting with you today. I love this work you're doing. I think it's much needed, and clearly the trends you're talking about, like the fastest growing sector of the job market and kind of just doubling
Yeah.
in the not too recent, not too distant future. And tell us a little bit more about where we can find you, and if people want to work with you or want to learn more, where can they go?
Yeah, I have a website, morethanmytitle.com, and my book just released in April, so you can read all about hybrid professionals and who they are. There's also a workbook, which has a lot of the tools on how to do these activities to find your own hybridity. And if you are on my website, there's online courses that will walk you through. And I love hearing from people, so people can email me at sarabeth@morethanmytitle.com, and I'm happy to answer questions directly.
Excellent. Well, it was really, again, fantastic to have you on the show. I'm Douglas Ferguson, co-author of Start Within with Karen Holst. We're here every Friday. If you want to join us as a guest or just want to tune in, it'd be great to see you. Until then, enjoy your day.